In 2004, a new Blockbuster video opened on planet Earth every 17 hours. This was an empire that employed 84,000 people. It commanded a war chest of $6 billion in annual revenue across 9,094 massive retail locations. You couldn't drive through an American suburb without seeing that distinct, slanted yellow ticket stub glowing in neon blue. Blockbuster wasn't just a business, it was a Friday night ritual. It was an absolute cultural monopoly. Fast forward to today. Exactly one independently franchised store remains. It is located in a strip mall in Bend, Oregon. It survives strictly as a nostalgic novelty, selling branded sweatpants and magnets to tourists. The empire is completely gone, evaporated. How does a global titan with billions in the bank, unparalleled brand recognition, and zero serious competitors completely vanish in less than a decade? The mainstream narrative is simple, clean, and entirely wrong. People say the internet unalived Blockbuster. People say Netflix took them out. That is a myth. Technology didn't destroy this company. This company was fundamentally addicted to a toxic revenue model. It financially penalized its own lifeblood. It died from arrogance, boardroom bloodbaths, disastrous acquisitions, and a complete failure to respect the people walking through its doors. To understand the autopsy, you have to look at the birth. In 1985, the video rental industry was a heavily fragmented joke. It was run almost entirely by local mom and pop shops. You would walk into a dimly lit room, browse a meager selection of maybe 200 VHS tapes, and hope the one copy of the movie you wanted was not already checked out. Store owners tracked their inventory with literal pen and paper. Employee theft was rampant. Enter David Cook. Cook was not a Hollywood insider. He was not a film buff. He was a software engineer and the founder of Cook Data Services. He built complex database systems for the Texas oil and gas industry. But the mid-'80s brought a brutal oil bust. Cook's company was bleeding cash. Facing total financial ruin, his wife Sandy looked at the chaotic, unorganized video rental market and suggested a massive pivot. Cook took $8.4 million, liquidated his software assets, and completely re-engineered the concept of a video store. He did not just open a shop, he built a brightly lit, family-friendly warehouse in Dallas, Texas. Instead of 200 VHS tapes, he stocked 8,000. His real genius was invisible to the customer. Cook brought his database expertise into the retail space. He put a barcode on every single VHS tape and built a computerized tracking system. This was revolutionary in 1985. He knew exactly what was rented, exactly who had it, and exactly when it was due back. Opening night was absolute chaos. The Dallas store was so completely overrun with customers that management had to physically lock the glass doors to stop the mob from overwhelming the fire capacity. Cook had cracked the code. He had the inventory, the data, and the demand. But Cook was a data guy, not a ruthless corporate scaler. In 1987, a man named Wayne Huizenga walked into a Blockbuster store. Huizenga was a corporate shark. He was the founder of Waste Management Incorporated. He built his fortune in garbage collection, mastering the logistics of aggressive route expansion and vicious corporate acquisitions. He did not care about movies. He cared about real estate, cash flow, and total market dominance. Huizenga bought an $18 million stake in Blockbuster, took control of the board, and effectively pushed Cook out of his own creation. Under Huizenga, Blockbuster became an apex predator. He applied a McDonald's-style franchise model to videotapes. He built massive regional distribution centers. He did not just compete with regional chains like Errol's Video, Sound Warehouse, and Major Video. He hostilely acquired them. He bought them out, ripped up their carpets, and painted their walls blue and yellow. The expansion was terrifyingly fast. By 1994, Blockbuster was an unstoppable juggernaut, generating so much cash that media conglomerate Viacom, led by the legendary and ruthless Sumner Redstone, purchased the company for $8.4 billion. Redstone wanted Blockbuster's massive cash flow to help fund his acquisition of Paramount Pictures. Blockbuster was at the absolute peak of the corporate food chain. They dictated terms to Hollywood studios. They secured exclusive revenue-sharing deals that guaranteed they received brand-new Blockbuster movies at a fraction of the cost of their competitors. They had an impenetrable moat. But inside that $8.4 billion valuation was a dirty little secret. A structural blind spot was rotting the company from the inside out. It was called the late fee. In the year 2000, Blockbuster generated nearly $800 million in pure profit strictly from punishing its customers. That accounted for roughly 16% of their entire corporate revenue. Think about the psychology of that business model. The company was actively incentivized to hope you failed. They wanted you to forget the tape on your coffee table, and they wanted you to be too tired to drive to the drop box on a Sunday night. Customers began to deeply resent the brand. Walking into a Blockbuster meant walking into an interrogation over a $4 charge from 3 weeks ago. It was a hostile relationship. You were subsidizing a multi-billion-dollar corporation that was actively penalizing your mistakes. The blue and yellow ticket stub was no longer a symbol of weekend entertainment. It was a financial trap. The hostility reached a boiling point in 2001 when Blockbuster was hit with a massive class action lawsuit from its own customers who claimed the late fees were illegally punitive. Blockbuster lost. They were forced to settle for $450 million. But in a move of pure corporate arrogance, they did not pay the settlement in cash. They paid it in free rental coupons, forcing angry customers to come back into the very stores they despised. This resentment laid the exact foundation for the most infamous boardroom blunder in modern corporate history. It is the spring of 2000. The dot-com bubble is actively bursting. A tiny, struggling startup from California is burning through cash at an alarming rate. They are $50 million in debt. They operate out of a highly inefficient warehouse, mailing VDS to a small user base of 300,000 people. They are desperate. The founders, Reed Hastings and Marc Randolph, charter a private jet. They fly to Dallas, Texas at 5 in the morning. They secure a meeting at the Renaissance Tower with Blockbuster CEO John Antioco. Antioco is a retail titan. He is taking home millions in executive compensation. He controls the entertainment habits of 50 million global customers. Hastings and Randolph walk into the boardroom. They lay out a massive white flag. They offer to sell their entire company to Blockbuster for exactly $50 million. They propose a synergy. Blockbuster handles the physical retail stores, and this tiny startup will run Blockbuster's digital and mail order brand. John Antioco listens to the pitch, and then he laughs. It was not a polite chuckle. It was a genuine, dismissive, arrogant laugh. He told them their business model was a joke. He called them a trivial niche player. Antioco was entirely convinced that the dot-com crash proved the internet was a volatile fad, and that massive brick-and-mortar real estate would remain the undisputed king of retail forever. He sent them packing. Blockbuster then attempted their own technological Hail Mary. In July 2000, Antioco signed a 20-year exclusive partnership to deliver video-on-demand services into people's living rooms. The technology partner he chose for this vital, company-saving infrastructure was Enron Broadband Services. The Enron deal spectacularly imploded. Blockbuster could not secure the digital streaming rights from the major Hollywood studios, and Enron was actively engaged in the largest corporate accounting fraud in global history. The partnership dissolved in 8 months, completely humiliating Blockbuster and leaving them with zero digital footprint, just as broadband internet was exploding into millions of homes. Meanwhile, Netflix survived the year. They quietly pivoted, refined their algorithms, and built out a vast network of regional shipping hubs. They targeted the exact vulnerability Blockbuster was too greedy to fix. Netflix completely eliminated late fees. You paid a flat subscription and you kept the movie as long as you wanted. By 2004, the bleeding at Blockbuster was finally noticeable. The blind spot had fully caught up with them. Customer defection to Netflix was accelerating at a terrifying pace. Adding to the chaos, Viacom saw the writing on the wall and officially spun Blockbuster off as an independent company. But Viacom did not let them go cleanly. Viacom saddled Blockbuster with nearly $1 billion in corporate debt as it walked out the door. Antioco, realizing his catastrophic mistake 4 years too late, desperately tried to pivot. He launched Blockbuster Online, a direct copy of the Netflix DVD by mail service. In a massive public relations blitz, he announced the end of the Blockbuster late fee. This is where the death spiral officially begins. Dropping late fees was the right move for the consumer, but it was financial poison for the corporation. Eliminating that penalty wiped out $400 million in guaranteed annual revenue overnight. Building the digital infrastructure for Blockbuster Online cost another $200 million. Antioco was actively incinerating cash to save the company's future. Wall Street absolutely panicked. Enter Carl Icahn. Icahn is one of the most feared activist investors on the planet. He bought up nearly 10% of Blockbuster's stock and launched a brutal public proxy war against Antioco. Icahn did not care about a 5-year digital strategy. He cared about the quarterly dividend. He was utterly furious that Antioco had voluntarily abandoned hundreds of millions in late fee revenue. Icahn publicly trashed Antioco's massive compensation packages and demanded immediate profitability over digital innovation. The boardroom turned into a bloodbath. Icahn rallied shareholders, stacked the board of directors with his own allies, and successfully slashed Antioco's bonus. Furious and undermined, Antioco resigned from the company in 2007. To replace him, Icahn brought in Jim Keyes. Keyes was the former CEO of 7-Eleven. He was a pure, old-school convenience store retail guy. He fundamentally did not understand the digital media landscape. Keyes immediately threw Antioco's digital strategy in the trash. He pulled $500 million in funding away from Blockbuster Online. He raised retail prices. He doubled down entirely on physical stores. He attempted to turn Blockbuster locations into bizarre convenience hubs, stocking them with video games, generic electronics, and junk food. He famously told the press he did not view Netflix as competition. He viewed Walmart and Apple as his true rivals. It was strategic insanity. The ship was actively sinking, and the captain was rearranging the candy aisle. In 2008, as the global financial crisis began to hammer the economy, Keyes made his most delusional move yet. With Blockbuster suffocating under a mountain of debt, Keyes attempted a hostile takeover of Circuit City for $1 billion. Circuit City was a catastrophically failing electronics retailer that was weeks away from its own bankruptcy. Wall Street watched in horror as one dying company tried to buy another dying company to somehow create a healthy giant. The deal ultimately fell through, but the damage to Blockbuster's credibility was permanent. Keyes then attempted to launch Blockbuster Express. These were bright blue DVD kiosks placed in grocery stores to compete with Redbox. But it was too late. The brand equity was completely destroyed. The kiosks were clunky, the inventory was poor, and the consumer had already moved entirely to digital streaming or automated competitors. On July 1st, 2010, the New York Stock Exchange officially delisted Blockbuster. The stock had plunged below $1 per share. The multi-billion-dollar juggernaut was officially categorized as a penny stock. A few months later, on September 23, 2010, Blockbuster filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. They closed thousands of stores, laid off tens of thousands of employees, and auctioned off their remaining assets. In April 2011, Dish Network purchased the hollowed-out corpse of Blockbuster at auction for $320 million. Dish Network had zero interest in reviving the retail brand. They wanted Blockbuster's massive database of customer information and their remaining telecom spectrum rights to bolster Dish's satellite television packages. They rapidly shut down the remaining corporate-owned retail locations, leaving only a handful of stubborn franchise owners to slowly bleed out over the next decade. The autopsy of Blockbuster is not a story about technological disruption. It is a story about corporate hubris. Blockbuster had the capital to buy Netflix. They had the infrastructure to beat Netflix. They had the brand recognition to dominate the digital era, but they completely failed because their baseline business model relied on customer hostility. When your profit margins depend entirely on your users' frustration, you are actively funding your own executioner. You are begging your consumer base to find an alternative. Netflix did not invent video delivery. They simply invented a transaction that did not feel like a punishment. The Blockbuster blind spot is the ultimate lesson for modern entrepreneurs. If your revenue requires your customer to lose, your empire is already dead. You just haven't hit the bottom yet.